Hello everyone, I'm Tony Southcott.
And I'm Komette. And welcome to our newest series called Original vs. Remake. Just like the name suggests, it's where we take an original film and we compare it to its modern counterpart.
And today we're talking about Hellboy. Back in 2004, Guillermo Del Toro put this first on film, and now Neil Marshall has rebooted it in 2019.
Let's see how they stand up to each other.
Well, we just got out of Hellboy, and we're filming at a different location than you guys have seen before, from Manic's living room.
Welcome to my humble abode.
Mostly because we can't go to hell to film like we did for Pet Sematary.
Yeah, exactly. And underground bunkers.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some here. There's a lot of different places. I mean, it was set in Colorado for the bunker.
Hey, you know it was, and it's snowy outside. We missed an opportunity.
Yeah,
but I don't want to sit outside in the cold.
But
It's cold.
This is one where both of us have had a little bit of trouble deciding if this is a reboot or a remake.
We gotta talk about that. So there's probably eventually in the series there's gonna be the debate on reboot versus remake. To me, the only I kind of had a thought. A remake shares the same story. A reboot does a different story.
Yeah, just completely redone.
Does that?
I mean, I could see it going either way. It might even be the same definition. Because
right.
Rebooting a series is like, well, we picked up where it left off because technically, like, some of the old Batman movies are in continuity with, like, the Tim Burton Batmans, like, from the 90s and all that, despite them having different Batman characters. Things like that could be considered reboots instead of remakes.
Right.
This feels like it could be more remake because it's a different story. A lot of the same elements, some of the same conclusions happen, like some of the same choices. It's not a continuation of the first two Hellboy movies.
I think it's a basic same story.
Yeah. And there's a cat, but we decided to leave the cat because Hellboy loves cats.
Yeah, Hellboy is a big cat person.
Especially in the first one.
So.
Like, I don't even think they actually had him, like, see a cat in the second.
No,
and
he didn't smoke a single cigar.
Yeah, and I feel there's a weird thing with, like, insurance now where you have to pay more.
Yeah.
It's like if you have a car scene, you have to have somebody putting their seatbelt on or wearing seatbelts. Otherwise, you end up getting huge fines.
That's really interesting. I heard that if you have any sort of tobacco use, you have to put a rated R. But this was very obviously rated R.
Yeah, this was a hard R. That's the biggest difference between the two. Or, not story-wise, but the biggest stylistic difference. It doesn't have the pretty elegance of Guillermo Del Toro, but it has a lot of savage violence.
It was gruesome. It was very bloody. It is guts. Do not take your 13-year-old girl or 7-year-old boy to this.
Yeah.
This is not a movie for them.
I could have handled it, 7 years old. But I've got problems.
You're a man. I got problems. Exactly.
The thing is, like, a lot of people said that they needed a hard R for Hellboy because it's violent. There's people cursing. There's a lot of that stuff happening, especially compared to the comics. And I would tend to agree, but I don't know how much the violence added to this movie, and it comes down to the writing more than it comes down to the actual on-screen violence. Which, by the way, if you were turned off by how much of the violence in the trailers was CGI, there is a lot of CGI violence, but there's also a lot of really cool practical effects that happen in this movie, both violent and non-violent, and some pretty cool stuff. It's not Guillermo Del Toro's level, especially for, like, the first two movies, that second one carrying a little more weight, but... Yeah, we're not supposed to talk about that.
I need to remind Tony, and I'm going to remind you guys to remind Tony, we're going to have a little tally. This movie is about the first Hellboy against the first Hellboy. We cannot put the second one in there.
Yes, but, like, you have more CGI in this one. It's more accessible. It's easier. There's probably less special effects people than there was 10 years ago making...
Del Toro loves physical effects.
The practical thing is his deal.
And he's good at it. And so that's where that movie really shined. Particular, I gotta hand it to the first one, when he has the skeleton on his back. That was almost a direct image from the comic books.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to bring up is how effective that graveyard scene is for the feel of Hellboy, where you're getting the paranormal investigation, you're getting him using, like, different artifacts and things to resurrect. I think it's more reanimate than resurrect. Mm-hmm. Like, you're pulling this corpse out of the ground, putting him on your back, and having him guide you around.
Snarky.
Yeah, it was very much Hellboy. for the comics and the way I think of Hellboy. And also, it was just kind of a beautiful scene. Like, whenever he, like, kind of, like, jumps into the grave and, like, the snow is falling and all that, like, it was very beautiful.
Yeah, that's...
well done.
And I have to agree that is the perfect visual, cinematic visual for what Hellboy is. And we'll go into some of the problems that we had with the remake associated with some of the things that we're talking about in this. But like you said, shows that he's knowledge, shows that he's good at what he does, that he is actually, what's the word? Not vulnerable, but...
he's competent at his work, and he's not invincible.
And you gotta trust him. He knows what he's fucking doing.
Yeah,
like it's just... it's such a great scene.
Yeah. In this one, like, the thing that was bugging you a lot, like, and you mentioned this in the movie and after, was... He was angry, but he wasn't being as effective at his job. He was good at killing, he was good at brawling, but he wasn't good at, like, paranormal knowledge. Like, he was supposed to be well studied on most of the things, and when he didn't know something, like, Abe Sapien would read him something, and they would have a good continuity there, where it was a team working together. But he still knew a lot of occult stuff. Yeah,
and that's, I think, one of my biggest problems with the actual character of Hellboy in the second one, in the remake, is for the most part, I really enjoyed David Harbour, not a P, but with a B, David Harbour's take on Hellboy. For the most part, I really liked him. The only thing, and I think it has to do with writing and not his actual acting, is that Hellboy was not well versed in occult. He didn't have all these different kind of trinkets and knowledge that made him good at his job, which is very much a big part of who Hellboy is in the comic books.
Yeah, and it's like, they showed a minor thing of that. He knew that the changelings didn't like iron. That was like the only thing, and they hit that like 4 different times.
And who Baba Yaga was.
Yeah. But these are people he's also fought before.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a cold knowledge on how to face something like that. So it just didn't feel like he was as competent with his work. And also, one of the biggest things is the difference in the professor.
Yes.
The professor is very much a father figure. Like, a good father figure. A wholesome man who abhors violence in the first movie.
Frail, lovable, knowledgeable.
The Dumbledore type. Mentor.
Yeah. Seek to by all, like...
Yeah. The guy that, like, whenever they have a funeral, everybody shows up because they're incredibly sad and all this. Like,
yeah.
Whereas Ian McShane is one of my favorite actors ever since Deadwood. But, like, in this one...
What does he say in that? He says all the time, fuck, no.
No, he says cocksucker.
Cocksucker, that's what it is, sorry.
Over and over again.
Side note, anyways.
But in this one, he's kind of a jerk, and he's not a very good dad.
He's not kind of a jerk, he is a dickhead.
Yeah, just straight up, like, to everyone. Like, and there are moments where you can tell he actually does care about Hellboy. There's definitely a bond there. But he is nothing like the other character.
No. And I'm trying to think of their reasoning behind that, and Tony has a few reasons. And
we're going to get borderline spoiler here. If you've seen the first one, you're not going to get spoiled to, like, some of the choices Hellboy has to make. Like, a lot of that stuff's been in the comics, it's been here. It's stuff that's going to be pretty predictable for a lot of people. So if you want to go in clean, check this out afterwards.
Yeah.
The choices that he has to make are always if he's going to side with the demon world or if he's going to side with humanity. And I would say that in the comics, he walked enough of a line that there was a slight chance, not a very big one, a slight chance that he would side with the demon side. In the first movie, there wasn't a chance in hell. He was just straight up the good guy. And in this one, they tried to put enough human angst into him and against him that he might have said yes under the right circumstances to just wipe out people for, like, the mythical creatures, for the underworld type creatures. I still didn't buy that it was enough, but it's like that's what they were pushing at by making the dad a jerk. That's why they were making, like...
isolation. He didn't really have any, like, best friends in this.
Yeah, he had a best friend at the beginning, and they're like, that's not a best friend, that's someone who you drink with.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, the opening for this one was kind of odd. Like,
I have one word for the remake. I keep on calling it the second one. For the remake, Whiplash.
Yeah, Whiplash, and we're going to get into your biggest criticism, the thing that made it so you were having a very hard time with this movie.
Yeah.
And that's the music.
The music editing was so bad, in my opinion. Whoever did the music editing in this, we're going to put your name right here, and I'm going to virtually slap you. Because, like, why? I feel like the eloquency of this movie could have been so much better if you hadn't put your dirty, rotten fingers on this movie.
Yeah, because I think that there are sections of this where the fight scenes are better than the first one. Because in some of the first ones, there's a lot of, it's not so much shaky cam, but there's a lot of stuff where he looks like he's weightless and just like a puppet and all this stuff. There's a lot more weight and impact in the newer one. But the newer one is so jilted by these weird guitar solos and things that just fly out of nowhere. I get it. Hellboy is metal. You don't have to keep saying that through like throwing random metal riffs into it.
I agree. And then there's an appropriate metal. I do believe that metal has a very strong place in this type of universe, but not the screaming guitar solos and fast-paced, really, really loud transitions. And almost every single transition from one scene in the next had this type of music editing into it.
And you see this in the trailer. They released 2 major trailers. The first one was like, I can't remember the name of the song. It's the one Ronda Rousey walks out to. It's like, I don't give a damn about my bad reputation. Goes on. It's very rock, but it's too poppy for this.
Yes.
And like,
what did we say? Sorry, finish.
Like, it was just, like, so up and down and all around and just not fitting for what we were looking at.
Yeah, I feel like I said a different version. I'm going to say my version, and then Tony's going to say the better version. I said, I think this is the Michael Bay version of a Hellboy movie.
Yeah, and then I was thinking this is, like, a Zack Snyder version.
And that's actually way more eloquent, is that this is totally a Zack Snyder version of Hellboy. And it's purely because of the music editing.
Yeah, because, like, in the Zack... Like, think back to 300, where you've got Spartans, and there's heavy metal riffs going. But it actually kind of worked because it's Frank Miller, it's surrealist, it's impressionistic, it's completely...
But it wasn't always screaming,
there's, like, 2 sequences...
Wailing, that's the word that I'm looking for. Wailing guitars.
Yeah, there's 2 sequences from that movie where they did it, and it's a long-cut combat sequence. In the middle of the movie. Whenever things got serious... Whenever it was a heartfelt scene, they went with a more standard version
of... Like a ballad. Even go for a ballad. I'm okay with metal. And you can even do, like, the heavy bass metal. But it wasn't that, and it makes me so sad. But if we're comparing, which we have to compare, I don't even remember the music from the first one.
Yeah, the first one was not notable. It's not like we had a Hans Zimmer soundtrack or, like, John Williams or something like that.
I think it's better. Yeah, it's better.
You either want the music to be astounding or you want it to not be in the way.
Yeah.
And this was just straight up in the way.
It was so in the way. Like, I want somebody to go back once this movie is released. I wanted to like this movie really badly. But I want somebody to go through and re-edit it with different music editing, and I'll watch it.
Yeah.
And I will come back to this video and tell you how much better that movie is. Well, you have to fix the writing, too.
Yeah, the writing is not great.
Have we gotten to the writing yet?
I think we've mentioned it a little bit. Like, the writing, we've mentioned how the characters were different. That is partially with the writing. But it's one of those where we looked up who the guy was that wrote this, and he's written a lot of Jack Diddley crap.
2 Guns, I think, was the only...
2 Guns, and I don't even know if that movie was really that good. I never saw that movie.
I thought it was pretty good.
Like, and other than that, it's a bunch of, like, low-rent stuff, which you can still get a good writer out of that sometimes.
We're not
This was
knocking
just
anything.
not
It was
great.
It was whiplash. There was, like, this going on, and then this was going on, and then I get that had to happen, so you learn from, like, way over here that this had to happen. But I feel like there was no flow to it.
Yeah.
And some decisions were just stupid.
A little bit. Like, I will say I didn't see the first betrayal coming. Like,
no, I did not.
I will say that was a good bit of writing.
But what? Was it needed?
Not entirely.
I guess maybe to make his choice at the end harder.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, a lot of the things in there were to make it seem like he would side against humanity because they literally stab him in the back.
But I feel like that would have been better if they would have wrote him knowing these people for a long time and then them betraying. Not be like, hey, sorry, that was a really big spoiler. Hey, I just met you 10 minutes ago. I'm gonna kill you now. Like, that... I don't know. It's just... And then and then it went from that to this girl that he knew from a kid, and then she's like this psychic, and then she's along for the ride. It doesn't, and then there's the guy who's scarred, and it was just the writing. I'm all over the place. I gotta let Tony
that's part of the problem is because it's all over the place, because you're just jumping all over. Like, whenever you had Abe Sapien and you had the Professor and you had a team that seemed like they'd work together, I will say the biggest, dumbest thing of the writing for the original Hellboy was the Myers character. Like, the everyman who was just like, he was put in there to give us emotional grounding, like we were part of the BP.
It probably was more introduction, I think.
Yeah.
So we didn't come into these people, like, somebody had to get all of the introductions for each of the different characters.
Yeah, it was for us to know things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
we were Myers.
Interesting... Yeah, we were Myers in that movie.
we were Myers.
And, like, that's an interesting way of doing it. It might be less ham-handed than some things, but it still wasn't my favorite way of doing it, especially because they kind of acknowledged that in the second one, whenever they said he was shipped off to Antarctica because Hellboy wanted him to be, despite him being friends with
They did have some fourth wall stuff. Did you catch all of them?
A few times I did catch fourth wall stuff.
Like, when they mentioned a sequel.
Yeah.
Did you get that one?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Which is, like, funny, and I feel like this movie was trying to pull from so many things that were popular in my imagination that just didn't quite... It doesn't work. Like, you can't just pull aspects from popular things and it work. Like, fourth wall stuff, I think, is because of Deadpool. And I feel like the soundtrack, they used a lot of modern, recognizable, I think is the music, and I feel like that's a Guardian of the Galaxy type of
except you didn't have near the insight that the people who did Guardian of the Galaxy, like, the people who did
look up that guy's name, and I want to curse him.
The guys who pulled together the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack made a soundtrack that, like, made me get, like, emotional at times. Yeah. And this was so not that.
No.
Like, I remember, like, in the second Guardians of the Galaxy when the chain starts and all that, and it's just like I got chills.
Yeah.
And it's, like, crazy to me that it can actually do that.
Right.
That I'm, like, remembering it and sort of getting those same chills right now. It's like,
amazing.
Bizarre.
And that's good music editing. They ignited a whole generation to music that was amazing. And I'm not saying that the music choices that they made, and we're back to music, and I apologize, but this is such a bad thing for me.
Like, the music dropped it by a full star. Like, if we had a 5-star system, like, I would have given it, like, I think it's at its solid 2 for me.
Yeah. Maybe
2.5 for some of the things that they did right.
Right. Okay, so I really want to talk about I want to talk about the witch, because I have some thoughts about it, but it's hard to compare them because there wasn't... I mean, Rasputin was kind of the main baddie, but it was like these series of bad guys in the first one.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the villains in the original versus the remake?
In the original, I feel like Rasputin was a little bit cheesy. Yeah. Like, he's a little cheesy. I love the legend of Rasputin. But the guy that got to play him and all that wasn't that convincing. Like, his, like, blonde Nazi chick was just there. Which
they did nods to him in this.
Yeah,
in this
like,
one.
He's there. The second one, like the newest one, did bring in Lobster Johnson. And I was very, very happy about that.
Lobster Johnson!
Yeah, and, like, there's a, like, stay for the post-credits.
It's a comic book.
It's from the comics,
comic book nod.
Yeah, and I was very happy with that. Like, that was a fun thing for me. And I think people are going to be like, who the hell is this guy? Whenever they watch this movie. Like, what was your reaction to that guy?
I think the only, it's Whiplash. You know, you have this scene where they're kind of explaining it, and then they're like, but Lobster Johnson came, which is awesome for the fans and everything. But I think it was not didn't quite fit.
Well,
the end credits were perfect for Lobster.
They rushed his origin story, which I've seen enough origin stories that like origin stories get boring sometimes, and I'm glad that they abridged it into like a 2.5-3 minute sequence.
Right, and I agree with that, but if they would have just kept it with that, but then they put Lobster Johnson in there, that's the thing that I think didn't quite fit. I think that post credits were great.
Yeah.
Maybe if they had Hellboy like gush about Lobster Johnson throughout the movie, then it would have been a little bit better. But no, but the bad guy. So you think Rasputin was?
He was okay.
He was okay.
Like, he was not the strongest part of that movie. The world was the strongest part of that movie.
Yeah.
Like the Cthulhu, like hellhound creature with the tentacles that he kept killing was an interesting adversary, and they kept on having to like fight more and more and more, and I felt like that was upping the stakes. Yeah, like that worked out pretty well for me. They went way further into the end times than Mike Mignola had written, and made it so that you've got like fucking Cthulhu in the cosmos coming to take over Earth.
Yeah.
And that's a big step whenever, like, they only hinted at that in the comics up to that point. Like, Mike Mignola literally went and wrote an ending that was similar to that just so that he could kind of catch up with what people expected from the movie. With this one, they had similar end-of-the-world level stakes. Even if the end credit scenes are like, well, you gotta, like, you're gonna up the blah, 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 like, you gotta, like, you fought a battle.
You have to up the blah, 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 sorry.
Yeah, it's the standard, like, you have to up the stakes every time, and whenever you start with the first one, that it's the end of the world, you can't up the stakes.
I mean...
Like, I guess Thanos did, but that's also 27 movies getting to that. Like, you have to literally imperil the entire universe.
That was perfect, upping the stakes. Yeah, and so the situations were really similar, but they were brought to by two different characters. Rasputin was very cheesy. So what do you think of The Witch?
Mila Jovovich has always had...
soft spot in your little heart.
Yeah, because of The Fifth Element. But she's
love
not
Lilu.
the greatest actress. I didn't mind her that much in this, though. I didn't mind looking at her. She's probably 50 and she's still smoking. But, like, with all the other stuff that's going on, like, in this, like, she had very canned lines. I didn't mind what she was trying to do. She seemed like a better temptress to get Hellboy to go and do that than Rasputin. Because why the hell would Hellboy even care what Rasputin thought about anything?
The only reason he did was because he killed Liz.
Yeah, like, that was the only reason, which he had leverage.
Liz would have been fucking furious.
Yeah. Whereas, like... with this woman, she's appealing to his emotions while also kind of whipping his ass because he kind of, like, needs some sort of structure, I guess. But I don't know. It's like, it was interesting.
Whiplash.
Yeah, it was just so much back and forth. Yeah. I did like her pig minion guy. I can't even begin to pronounce his name. It's like Narash or something like that. Like, I didn't mind him. I thought that the animation was better for that than most CGI characters that are, like, hybrid animals.
I didn't even think about the fact that it's CGI, so there you go. That's like...
Yeah. Like, that one was probably done better than any of the others. He got more screen time than the other CGI animals, too, so I think they were a little more focused in on him. And I like how they actually, like, they brought his power level up so that, like, the fights in the beginning actually mattered. Because whenever you have a hero fight somebody and they beat them in the beginning of the movie, why should we care if they're fighting again later in the movie?
Yeah, you know there's who's gonna win.
Yeah.
Okay, so my opinion is, in the first movie, the Rasputin was very cheesy. I really enjoyed the zombie guy.
Yeah, the zombie guy.
I don't know his name. Not Zombie Nazi, whatever.
The dust guy?
Yeah.
He's got a really, really long name.
Yeah, I'm not gonna even.
It's like...
we'll put it somewhere.
Grotchka Dusseldorf.
Terminator.
Yeah. We didn't really talk much about him. The only thing I didn't like about his fighting style is it's so much show rather than just efficiency. Right. But he's so, like, he has the rule of cool thing going on, so you forgive a lot of it.
Yeah, exactly. So I liked him.
The surgical masochist.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't have any lips.
Yeah.
I liked him as a foe. I think more so in the first one, Hellboy was battling himself, wanting to be what Liz wanted him to be, more so than the adversaries. Whereas the second one, the remake. How many times have I done that already?
We've done that a lot.
Yeah.
I think people know what we're talking about.
We'll put a little ding every single time we do it.
Don't put that on me.
I forgot that this will be a quick edit, so don't mind me. The remake had Mila Jovovich, and I could not help, and this is my own fault, but I could not help comparing her continuously throughout the movie to Charlize Theron's evil queen in the Huntsman.
I thought the Huntsman was the second one, but it might be. It's something in the Huntsman.
Yeah.
Like I'll put it down.
Yeah, in that movie, and how Mila Jovovich's character she wasn't scary to me.
Yeah, she doesn't.
She didn't command like respect.
Charlize Theron has menace to her because she's seen some shit.
I mean, fair.
Like, she literally saw her mom shoot her dad. Like, she's seen enough shit that she can bring menace out.
Right.
She's from, like, South Africa during apartheid. Like, there's a different level of person there than with Mila Jovovich, who kind of reminds me of, like, not a valley girl, that's insulting, but just, like, an average woman.
Yeah, an average woman. And Mila Jovovich, the witch, did not command any respect. She did not seem menacing or scary at all. And I have a lot of problems fearing a character that doesn't like seem respectful to me.
Yeah. And
so I get that she like killed a lot of people and she had the plague and all that stuff, but all those abilities didn't seem to fit the character.
Also, like, she's still a human, even if she's a witch, so he's trying to get, like, or she's trying to get him to destroy all humans, but she is human.
Yeah.
So, like, I felt like that was, like, kind of borderline. It's like, I know that she wasn't normal because she's, like, a blood witch, which I actually didn't mind the whole thing of, like, she's being reassembled. I thought that was kind of cool. Right,
that wasn't the problem. It was I love Lilu. Fifth Element's probably one of my favorite movies ever. It was Mila Jovovich's portrayal of the character that I did not like.
Yeah.
Sure, her face seemed like too emotional at times, I think.
Yeah. Whereas, like, from the impression I got from the comics, I read most of the comics, but I don't remember her arc. Like, she was just kind of a cold, hard bitch.
Right, if you're sitting in a fucking box for 1,500 years?
Yeah, 1,500 years.
1,500 years, you're not gonna really care about fucking shit.
You also did walk out to go to the bathroom during a scene where she was literally just murking people in London.
I had to pee.
Like, she was messing people up. It was pretty gruesome. Like, some of the most gruesome stuff in the movie. And that also brings me, like, we're running out of space on there.
Okay.
We've done a lot of comparison, and we've been talking for a while. I think we're going to end it here. Which one did you like better?
The first one.
And I think I'm going to say the first one, too. And just a little bit more would have put it on the same level. Just a little bit. But they can't take it back.
It fell flat.
Yeah, they can't take it back. Maybe if they make a second one in this, they'll be able to redeem themselves.
New writer.
Yeah,
new music editor.
Yeah, just new editors in general.
Yeah, post-production I think is what ruined it. I heard that David Harbour had a lot of trouble on set.
Yeah, like he did not get along with the director all that well.
Which David Harbour is good. Oh man, he looked good.
Yeah, he looked great in this.
He looked so good.
I saw him over the summer. Like,
holy shit, like...
I was 2 feet away from him. And the girl I was with was like, I did not realize David Harbour is daddy.
Daddy, yes. Exactly. He looked amazing. He looked amazing, and I watched a lot of interviews.
Mostly a rubber suit, but it's still...
No, he had that... No, because I watched a few interviews, and they were like, they wanted me super fucking strong for this. Yeah. I will believe that that's real. Let me believe that that's real.
But yes, like the Hellboy costumes, both good.
Both
I like the
really
little changes.
Good. The horns, amazing.
Yeah.
Visuals really good. The demons I gotta mention in the
Especially
remake.
the Hell Demons. Like
the Hell Demons were so amazing. They looked like that artist that you were obsessed with.
H.R. Geiger? Or
no, the other one.
Zadislav Beksinski.
That one. It was amazing. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
First one, writing, character, and for being a PG-13, visuals were better.
Yeah. And
Del Toro.
we have to finish this because the
We do.
camera is telling us to. Check out patreon.com/Human Echoes. Put your comments in here. Tell us what you thought of both movies. Please, do it.
We'll catch you next time on original versus remake.
Love you guys.
Bye.